The conference room aboard the Galactic Research Station was enormous. It had to be, to accommodate the many different species that made up the Galactic Council. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide. Some breathed oxygen, others required different gas mixtures pumped directly to their seats. Dr. Velkathis stood at the center of the room, her blue scales catching the artificial light. She was a Xanthari, a species known throughout the galaxy for their scientific precision and cold logic. Her research had taken 3 full cycles to complete, and now she would present her findings to the most important beings in known space. Honored council members, she began, her voice translator converting her clicking speech into something all species could understand. I am here to discuss the human request to colonize Glacium 7. A holographic display materialized behind her, showing a planet covered entirely in white and blue ice. Storm systems swirled across its surface like angry scars. Glacium 7 is what humans would call a death world, Velkathis continued. Surface temperatures average minus 150 degrees in their Celsius measurement. The planet experiences ice storms with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. During the 6-month polar night, temperatures drop even further. No liquid water exists on the surface. The council members shifted in their seats. Several made sounds of discomfort. The Grell representative, whose crystalline body was designed for cold environments, clicked his approval at the data. Velkathis pulled up another display. This one showed a human body, rotating slowly in 3 dimensions. This is the species requesting colonization rights, humans. They come from a planet called Earth, a world with relatively mild temperature ranges. Their bodies are adapted for temperatures between minus 10 and plus 40 degrees Celsius. Outside this range, their biology begins to fail rapidly. She zoomed in on the human skin. Notice they have almost no natural insulation. A thin layer of fat, yes, but nothing compared to the Xanthari blubber layers or the Kresh thermal fur. Their skin is exposed and vulnerable. They have no scales, no protective coating, no natural antifreeze in their blood. The Yanari representative, a floating gaseous being, pulsed with curiosity. Then why do they wish to attempt this colonization? Surely they understand the danger. Velkathis allowed herself what humans might call a smile, though on her face it looked more like a predatory display of teeth. That is the question I have spent 3 cycles trying to answer. I have studied human psychology, their history, their biology. The conclusion is simple. They do not understand. They are overconfident. She brought up more data, charts, and graphs that painted a clear picture. I have compared human survival capabilities against 17 other species who have attempted operations on ice worlds. The Xanthari, my own people, have successfully established 3 research stations on similar planets. The Kresh have 2 permanent settlements. Even the Grell, who we see here today, barely survived their initial survey of Glacium 7. The Grell representative made a grinding sound of agreement. It was most challenging. We lost 6 team members to the cold even with our natural adaptations. Exactly, Velkathis said. And yet the humans believe they can not only survive but establish a permanent colony, with families, children, and full infrastructure. My models show that an unprotected human would freeze to death within 2 hours on Glacium 7's surface. Even with basic protective gear, survival beyond 6 hours is unlikely. She displayed images of Earth's coldest regions. Humans point to these areas as proof of their capability, places they call Antarctica and Siberia. But these regions, while cold by their standards, rarely drop below minus 80 degrees Celsius. Glacium 7 is nearly twice as cold, with far more hostile conditions. The council chamber filled with murmuring and translated whispers. The evidence was overwhelming. This was clearly a doomed venture. The human ambassador, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, sat quietly in the visitors section. She had listened to the entire presentation without interruption, her face calm and unreadable. Velkathis had studied human expressions in her research. This should have been the moment when Chen showed signs of doubt or concern. Instead, the human seemed almost amused. The council leader, an ancient thrall whose tentacles had grayed with centuries of wisdom, spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. Dr. Velkathis, your research is most thorough. However, the humans have formally requested colonization rights. By galactic law, we cannot deny them without absolute proof that their attempt would violate ethical standards or endanger other species. I understand, honored leader, Velkathis replied. I am not requesting denial of their petition. I am simply ensuring that the Council understands what will likely happen. This will be a tragedy. Humans will die on Glacium 7, possibly many of them. I wish this to be documented as a learning opportunity for all species. The Threll leader's eyes, all 6 of them, focused on Dr. Chen. Human Ambassador, you have heard the scientific assessment. Do you wish to reconsider your people's request? Sarah Chen stood up, smoothing her simple gray uniform. She walked calmly to the center of the room, standing beside the holographic display of Glacium 7's frozen surface. For a long moment, she simply looked at the planet, her dark eyes reflecting the blue and white ice. Honored Council, she began, her voice steady and clear. We have reviewed Dr. Velkathis's research. It is thorough and well-reasoned. We do not dispute her data. Velkathis felt a surge of satisfaction. The human was going to withdraw the request. However, Chen continued, and that one word made Velkathis's scales prickle. We believe there are factors that were not included in the assessment. We respectfully maintain our request for colonization rights. The room erupted in surprised chatter. The Threll leader raised a tentacle for silence. Very well. The request is granted. Your colony ship, the Perseverance, may proceed to Glacium 7. We wish you good fortune. As the council session ended and representatives filed out, Velkathis approached Dr. Chen. I do not understand, the Zenthari scientist said. You will die down there. Your people will freeze. Sarah Chen met her eyes and smiled. It was not the smile of someone in denial. It was the smile of someone who knew something that Velkathis did not. Doctor, Chen said gently, you've studied our biology very well, but there's more to humans than just biology. You'll see. The human turned and walked away, leaving Velkathis standing alone in the empty chamber, staring at the frozen image of Glacium 7, feeling something she rarely experienced. Uncertainty. The Perseverance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Glacium 7 system. Dr. Velkathis watched from the observation deck of her research vessel, which maintained a safe orbit above the ice planet. Her entire team was present, along with recording equipment that would document every moment of what she believed would be a disaster. The human colony ship is preparing for atmospheric entry, her assistant, a young Zenthari named Krell, announced. They are carrying 1,200 colonists. 500 are adults, 700 are juveniles. Velkathis felt her inner eyelids flicker with concern. They brought children to a death world. This is worse than I thought. The Perseverance was an impressive vessel, she had to admit. It was designed specifically for colony work, with modular sections that could detach and become the first habitat structures. The humans had clearly put significant resources into this venture. It seemed tragic that all of it would be wasted. The colony ship entered the atmosphere smoothly. Ice storms raged across the landing site, but the Perseverance's pilots navigated through them with skill. The ship touched down in a relatively flat ice plain near the planet's equator, where temperatures were at their warmest, which meant only minus 120 degrees Celsius. Begin full spectrum monitoring, Velkathis ordered. I want biological readings on every human who steps outside. Document the exact moment when their bodies begin to fail. The first humans emerged 3 hours after landing. Velkathis zoomed in her observation screen, expecting to see them in simple protective suits struggling against the cold. What she saw instead made her pause. The humans were covered head to toe in layers of material. Their faces were hidden behind transparent masks. Their hands were covered in thick gloves that looked almost comical in their bulkiness. Each human wore what appeared to be an entire ecosystem of clothing, layer upon layer of different materials. Temperature readings inside their suits? She asked. Krell checked his instruments. 20 degrees Celsius. They have heating elements built into the clothing. Artificial heating. That will drain their power supplies quickly. They cannot maintain that for long. But the humans moved with purpose and efficiency. They began unloading equipment from the Perseverance, working in teams of 4 or 5. When one human showed signs of cold exposure, shivering inside their suit, the others immediately surrounded them, pressing close together. Body heat sharing, Velkathis realized. A primitive mammalian behavior, but effective for short-term survival. Within the first day, the humans had assembled 3 habitat domes. These were not simple shelters. They were complex structures with triple-layered walls filled with insulating materials. Airlocks prevented heat loss. The humans worked in shifts, no one staying outside for more than 30 minutes at a time. They are being careful, Krell observed. More careful than I expected. Velkathis watched as drilling equipment was positioned at various points around the colony. What are they drilling for? It took several hours to get the answer. The humans were drilling deep into the ice, searching for geothermal heat. Glacium 7, despite its frozen surface, had a molten core like most planets. The humans were going to tap into that heat source. Clever, Velkathis admitted, but it will not be enough. The surface cold is too extreme. 1 week passed. Then 2. The human colony not only survived but grew. More structures appeared, connected by enclosed tunnels so the humans never had to expose themselves to the outside environment for more than a few seconds. Solar panels and wind turbines provided power. The geothermal wells supplied heating. Velkathis reviewed her predictions again and again. The math was clear. This should not be working. On day 15, something happened that changed everything for Velkathis. A human maintenance worker's heating element failed while they were working on an external antenna. The temperature inside their suit dropped rapidly. The worker was 100 meters from the nearest airlock. Velkathis leaned forward, her scientific detachment cracking. This was it. This was the moment her predictions would come true. The human would freeze before reaching safety, but the human did not panic. Instead, they activated their radio. Heating failure, Sector 7. I need backup. Within seconds, 3 other humans emerged from the airlock. They ran, their movements slow in the bulky suits but determined. They reached their colleague in under a minute. 2 of them opened thermal emergency blankets, wrapping them around the injured worker. The third opened a panel on their own suit and connected a cable to the failing suit, sharing their power supply. Together, all 4 humans walked back to the airlock. The injured worker's vital signs, which Velkathis was monitoring, never entered the danger zone. They made it inside with minimal exposure damage. That evening, Velkathis listened to the human communication channels. The injured worker was in the medical bay, being treated for minor frostbite on their fingers. The other humans were visiting, bringing something called hot soup and making jokes. You know, this is worse than that Minnesota winter, right? One human said, laughing. Please, another replied. I did 2 years in Antarctica. This is just Antarctica with worse weather. They were laughing, making jokes, comparing this death world to places on their home planet as if they were similar. Velkathis accessed the human database, something she had not done thoroughly before. She looked up these places they mentioned: Minnesota, Antarctica, Siberia, Oymyakon. The information made her scales stand on end. Humans had been living in extreme cold environments for thousands of their years, not just surviving but building permanent settlements, towns, cities, research stations in places where the cold rivaled space itself. But these were still warmer than Glacium 7. The data said so. Her calculations were correct, and yet the humans thrived. On day 23, they started a greenhouse. On day 27, they celebrated something called a birthday party for one of the children. On day 30, they sent a message to the Galactic Council requesting permission to expand their colony territory. Velkathis sat alone in her observation room, surrounded by data that no longer made sense. The humans should be dead or dying. Instead, they were planning expansion. She pulled up the video feed from the colony's central hub. Humans walked around in light clothing, comfortable in their controlled environment. Children played games. Adults worked at computer terminals or tended to plants in the greenhouse. It looked like any colony on any habitable planet in the galaxy, but outside those walls, beyond that bubble of warmth and life, the universe's cold tried endlessly to destroy them. Ice storms hammered the structures with winds that could tear apart unprotected flesh. Temperatures that would freeze most liquids solid in seconds pressed against every wall, and the humans simply ignored it. They built better walls, stronger heaters, more layers. I was wrong, Velkathis said quietly to the empty room, but I do not yet understand why. She looked at her research, at months of work that had led to completely incorrect predictions. Somewhere in her analysis, she had missed something crucial, something obvious. The humans had tried to tell her, she realized. Dr. Sarah Chen's smile had been knowing, not ignorant. The humans had information that Velkathis lacked. She pulled up Dr. Chen's contact information and sent a message. I request a meeting. I wish to understand what I overlooked. The reply came within minutes. Of course, Doctor. Come down anytime. We will show you what it means to be human. Velcathis's shuttle touched down at the human colony on day 35. She had brought minimal equipment, just her personal recording devices and environmental suit. The humans had assured her that their facilities could accommodate Zenthari physiology, which she found doubtful but decided to trust. Dr. Sarah Chen met her at the airlock, wearing simple work clothes and a warm smile. Welcome to New Hope Colony, Dr. Velcathis. We are honored to have you. The Zenthari scientist looked around the interior of the habitat with scientific interest. The temperature was comfortable, around 18 degrees Celsius. The air was properly mixed. The lighting was gentle and warm. It could have been any research station on any planet. You have made this comfortable, Velcathis admitted. But comfort is not the same as safety. You are one power failure away from death. We have 7 redundant power systems, Chen replied, guiding her guest through a corridor. Solar, wind, geothermal, nuclear, chemical batteries, hydrogen fuel cells, and a biomatter converter. We would need to lose all 7 simultaneously to be in danger. The odds are approximately 1 in 4 billion. Velcathis made a note of this. Redundancy. The humans had not simply built a colony, they had built multiple backup systems for every critical function. This was more careful planning than she had credited them with. They passed through several sections of the colony. Velcathis saw a school where human children learned their lessons. A medical facility that looked advanced even by galactic standards. Workshops where humans crafted tools and repaired equipment. A common area where off-duty colonists gathered to eat and socialize. You seem surprised, Chen observed. I expected desperation. Instead, I see normalcy. Why would we be desperate? We planned for this. We knew exactly what challenges we would face. Chen led her to a large window that looked out over the ice plains of Glacium 7. A storm was building in the distance, dark clouds promising violent weather. Velcathis could see her own research ship in orbit, a small point of light against the black sky. You have been watching us, Chen said. It was not a question, I have. I predicted failure. Instead, I have witnessed success. I do not understand why my models were wrong. Chen gestured to a nearby seating area. Both of them sat. The human in a simple chair, the Zenthari on a specially designed pad that accommodated her body structure. Your models were not wrong about our biology, Chen began. Everything you said was factually correct. Our bodies are not designed for this cold. An unprotected human would indeed freeze to death within hours here. You made no errors in your biological analysis. Then why am I wrong? Because you only analyzed part of what makes us human. You looked at our bodies, but you did not look at our minds. Before Velcathis could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the colony. Chen's communication device activated immediately. Medical emergency in Sector 4. Expectant mother in premature labor. Complications. Chen stood quickly. Come with me. You are about to see something important. They rushed through the colony corridors, reaching the medical facility within minutes. The scene inside was controlled chaos. A human woman lay on a medical bed, clearly in pain. Her partner stood beside her, holding her hand. Medical staff moved with practiced efficiency. The baby is coming early, one of the doctors said. 6 weeks ahead of schedule. We are ready for this, but there is a problem. The environmental controls in this wing just failed. We are working on it, but the temperature is dropping. Velcathis checked her instruments. The temperature in the medical wing was falling rapidly. Already it had dropped to 5 degrees Celsius. Within minutes it would be freezing. Evacuate the patient, Velcathis said urgently. Move her to a warmer location. We cannot, the doctor replied calmly. The baby is coming now. We have perhaps 3 minutes. We must deliver here. Velcathis watched in horror as the temperature dropped further. 0 degrees. -5. -10. The medical staff worked without panic, but she could see their breath now, vapor in the cold air. The baby was born at -15 degrees Celsius. It was tiny, fragile, its skin blue from the cold. By all of Velcathis's training, this infant should not survive. Hypothermia would set in within seconds at this temperature, but the humans had prepared for this too. They immediately wrapped the baby in layers of special blankets, metallic on one side, soft fabric on the other. They placed small heating elements around the infant. Most importantly, the mother held the baby against her bare skin, the infant tucked inside her hospital gown. Skin-to-skin contact, Chen explained quietly. We call it kangaroo care. The mother's body heat keeps the baby warm. Humans have been doing this for tens of thousands of years. Within 10 minutes, the environmental controls were restored. The temperature climbed back to normal levels. The baby, now pink and healthy-looking, began to cry. Strong, healthy cries. Velcathis stood frozen, but not from the cold. She was frozen by the realization of what she had just witnessed. That evening, in a private meeting room, Chen brought Velcathis a hot beverage. "This is tea," she explained. "It will help warm you. I know you were stressed by what you saw." Velcathis accepted the cup, holding it between her clawed hands. The warmth was pleasant. That child should have died. The cold should have killed it. But it did not. Because we did not let it. We had tools, knowledge, and preparation. We had blankets and heating elements. We had medical training. We had each other. Chen pulled up a holographic display showing images of Earth. Velcathis saw frozen tundras where humans lived in insulated homes, burning deserts where they used cooling systems and shade structures, mountain peaks where they carried oxygen tanks, deep oceans where they dove in pressurized suits. This is what you missed in your research, Dr. Velcathis. Humans do not adapt to environments through biological evolution alone. We adapt through technology, through learning, through community. When we face a challenge, we do not wait for nature to change us. We change nature. More images appeared. Humans building structures on hostile worlds. Humans creating artificial environments in space stations. Humans diving into volcanic regions wearing protective suits. Humans living in underwater bases. Every environment on Earth tried to kill us at some point, Chen continued. Ice ages that should have destroyed our species. Droughts that should have starved us. Predators that were stronger and faster. Diseases that killed millions. But we survived all of it. Not because our bodies were the best, but because our minds were flexible. Velcathis finally understood. She had been asking the wrong question. Not can human bodies survive Glacium 7, but can humans solve the problem of Glacium 7? You are tool users, she said slowly. But so are many species. The Kresh use tools. The Grell use tools. Even my own people use technology. Yes, but it is different for us. For most species, tools are an addition to their natural abilities. For humans, tools are part of who we are. We are not strong, so we invented weapons. We are not fast, so we invented vehicles. We are not adapted to cold, so we invented heating. Technology is not something we use. It is something we are. Velcathis set down her teacup, her mind racing through implications. Your species does not wait for evolution. You force your own adaptation through invention. Exactly, and we do it fast. The Xanthari took millions of years to develop blubber layers for cold worlds. We developed heated suits in a few generations. You have natural advantages that took eons to develop. We have artificial advantages that we can create in years, months, or even days. The Xanthari scientist pulled up her original research on her personal device. Page after page of biological comparisons, charts showing how humans were weaker, slower, less adapted than almost every other species in the galaxy. My entire approach was flawed, she said quietly. I was measuring the wrong variables. I measured biology when I should have measured capability. Do not feel badly, Chen said kindly. Most species make this same mistake when they first meet us. They see our soft bodies and thin skin and assume we are weak. They do not realize that our true strength is not physical. It is mental. It is our ability to see a problem and refuse to accept that it cannot be solved. Outside the window, another storm rolled across the ice plains of Glacium 7. Winds that could tear apart unprotected flesh, cold that could freeze blood in veins, a hostile world that wanted nothing more than to kill every living thing on its surface. And yet inside these walls, a newborn baby slept peacefully in its mother's arms. The baby would grow up here playing in the artificial warmth, learning in the schoolrooms, never knowing fear of the cold outside, because humans had decided that Glacium 7 would not kill them. And when humans decided something, Velcathis was learning. The universe had to adjust. Dr. Velcathis spent the next month at New Hope Colony, documenting everything she saw. Her original research paper, which predicted human failure on Glacium 7, now sat in her files marked for deletion. She was writing something entirely new, something that would challenge the galaxy's understanding of human capabilities. The more she observed, the more her initial assumptions crumbled. On day 47, she watched human engineers solve a critical water reclamation problem in under 6 hours. A problem that would have taken a Xanthari team 3 days of careful calculation and planning. The humans simply tried 5 different solutions simultaneously, kept the one that worked, and moved on. "Why do you not plan more carefully?" she asked the chief engineer, a woman named Maria Santos. Maria laughed, her hands covered in grease from repairing a pump. "We did plan. We planned for the plan to fail. That is why we have backup plans and backups for the backups. Planning is good, but adapting is better." On day 52, Velcatis attended what humans called a town meeting. The entire colony gathered in the central hall to discuss problems and make decisions. She watched as colonists debated solutions to various challenges, from food production to waste management to social issues. What struck her was the diversity of ideas. Humans did not seek consensus through careful evaluation like the Zenthari. They encouraged disagreement, competition of ideas, rapid testing of theories. It was chaotic, inefficient, and somehow incredibly effective. "We vote on major decisions," Dr. Chen explained. "Everyone gets a voice. Yes, it takes time, and yes, sometimes we make mistakes. But we catch those mistakes fast because everyone is watching, everyone is thinking, everyone is involved." Velcatis was beginning to understand something profound. Human strength was not individual, it was collective. One human might be weak, but a group of humans working together became something far more powerful than the sum of their parts. On day 63, she received a communication from her own people. The Zenthari research outpost on the neighboring ice planet, Glacium 5, was requesting additional support. The team there was struggling with equipment failures and morale problems. The irony was sharp. Glacium 5 was warmer than Glacium 7. The Zenthari were biologically better adapted to cold than humans. And yet, the Zenthari outpost barely functioned while the human colony thrived. Velcatis requested permission to visit the Zenthari outpost for comparison. She arrived to find a facility that was technically adequate but psychologically depressing. The Zenthari scientists moved slowly, working alone at individual stations. The environmental controls were set to just barely tolerable temperatures because anything warmer wasted power. The atmosphere was one of endurance, not thriving. "We survive," the outpost commander told her. "We complete our research. But I will be honest, Dr. Velcatis, we hate it here. Every day is a struggle against our natural instincts. Our bodies are adapted to cold, yes, but our minds still tell us to avoid it. We want to leave." Velcatis returned to New Hope Colony with new questions. She found Dr. Chen in the greenhouse, a massive domed structure where humans had somehow coaxed earth plants to grow under artificial sunlight. "Your people are miserable on Glacium 5, Velcatis said. "But you are happy here on Glacium 7, which is far worse. I do not understand this." Chen looked up from the tomato plants she was tending. "Tell me about your outpost. What do they do for recreation?" "Recreation? They work, they rest, they eat. What else is there?" "That is the difference. Come with me." Chen led Velcatis through the colony to an area she had not visited before. It was a large open space that humans had designated as a recreation center. Inside, she saw something that made no logical sense. Humans had built ice sculptures, elaborate, beautiful structures carved from the very substance that was trying to kill them. They had created a skating rink, where humans strapped blades to their feet and slid across frozen water for entertainment. There was a viewing area where colonists were watching something called a hockey game, apparently a sport played on ice. "You are celebrating the cold," Velcatis said, stunned. "You have turned this hostile environment into entertainment. Humans need more than survival," Chen explained. "We need purpose, community, joy. When faced with something that wants to kill us, we often respond by making it into a game. It is our way of saying that we refuse to be defeated. Ice cannot kill us if we turn it into art." A group of human children ran past, laughing and throwing packed snow at each other. Snow. They had brought the deadly cold inside, in controlled amounts so their children could play with it. "You are insane," Velcatis said, but there was wonder in her voice rather than judgment. "Maybe," Chen agreed with a smile, "but we are alive, and we are happy. That counts for something." That evening, Velcatis began writing her revised report. She titled it, "Tool Use as Evolutionary Adaptation, a Comprehensive Re-Examination of Human Survival Capabilities." The paper's abstract read, "Initial analysis of human colonization of Glacium 7 was based on biological comparison models. This approach was fundamentally flawed. Humans do not survive through biological superiority. but through technological adaptation and psychological resilience. Their evolutionary advantage is not physical, but mental, the ability to rapidly develop solutions to environmental challenges and the psychological tendency to view hostile conditions as problems to be solved, rather than threats to be avoided. She sent the paper to the Galactic Council with a recommendation that shocked many other species. Should study human techniques for hostile world colonization, the methods that humans used, the redundant systems, the modular construction, the psychological approaches to maintaining morale in harsh conditions. All of these had applications far beyond Glacium 7. Within weeks, she received responses from across the galaxy. The Kresh wanted to study human cold weather gear. The Ynnari were interested in human habitat construction techniques. Even the proud Grell admitted they could learn from human redundancy planning. On day 90, New Hope Colony celebrated what humans called a 3-month anniversary. They had survived a full quarter year on one of the harshest worlds in the known galaxy. The celebration included music, dancing, special foods, and a ceremony where they planted a tree from Earth in the greenhouse. Velkathis watched Dr. Chen give a speech to the assembled colonists. "We came here knowing it would be hard," Chen said. "We came here knowing many people said we would fail. But we also came here knowing something that our doubters did not understand. Humans do not accept failure as inevitable. We face it, we plan for it, we prepare for it, and then we do everything in our power to prevent it." The colonists cheered. Children waved flags. Someone started singing a song about ice and determination. Velkathis stood at the edge of the gathering, watching these strange, soft, biologically unremarkable beings who had accomplished something that defied scientific prediction. They had not just survived. They had thrived. They had turned a death world into a home. Later, in her quarters, Velkathis recorded a personal note in her research log. "I came to Glacium 7 expecting to document a failure. Instead, I have witnessed something far more important. I have seen what makes humans different from almost every other species in the galaxy. It is not strength or speed or natural adaptation. It is stubbornness. It is creativity. It is the absolute refusal to accept that any problem is truly impossible to solve." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "The galaxy has underestimated humans because we measure them by the wrong standards. We compare their bodies to ours and find them lacking. But human survival has never been about bodies. It is about minds, tools, and the sheer determination to never give up." She looked out her window at the colony below, lights shining warm and bright against the frozen darkness of Glacium 7. "I was wrong. Not about the data, but about what the data meant. The obvious truth was always there, waiting for me to see it. If you show humans an impossible challenge, they will not ask if it can be done. They will ask how long it will take." Outside, the ice storms raged. Inside, humanity thrived. And across the galaxy, species were beginning to understand that when humans said they would do something impossible, they were not being optimistic. They were making a promise. 6 months after the establishment of New Hope Colony, the Galactic Council convened a special session to discuss the unexpected success of human colonization efforts on Glacium 7. Dr. Velkathis stood once again at the center of the Great Chamber, but this time her presentation carried a very different message. "Honored council members," she began, "I stand before you to formally retract my previous assessment of human colonization capabilities. I was wrong. More importantly, I was wrong in a way that reveals a systematic error in how we evaluate species throughout the galaxy." The holographic display behind her showed New Hope Colony, now expanded to include 12 major habitat structures, 3 greenhouses, and a population that had grown to include 15 new births. All healthy, all thriving. The human colony on Glacium 7 is not merely surviving, it is succeeding beyond any projections. They have achieved 98% efficiency in resource management, 0 critical system failures, and psychological wellness scores that exceed most colonies on far more hospitable worlds. The Ynnari representative pulsed with curiosity. "How is this possible? Your original research was thorough and logical." "It was thorough in examining the wrong variables," Velkathis replied. "I measured biological adaptation. I should have measured technological innovation and psychological resilience. Humans do not wait for evolution to adapt their bodies to new environments. They force adaptation through engineering. often within a single generation. She displayed comparative data. The average time for a species to biologically adapt to a new environmental pressure is 700,000 to 2 million years. Humans develop technological solutions to the same pressures in an average of 20 to 50 years. In crisis situations, they can create functional adaptations in days. The Grell representative made a grinding sound of disbelief. Impossible. Technology requires testing, refinement, safety protocols. Humans do all of that, Velkathis explained, but they do it simultaneously rather than sequentially. They test multiple solutions at once, keep what works, and quickly discard what does not. They call it rapid prototyping. It is chaotic, but incredibly fast. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the visitor section again, this time accompanied by 5 other human colony leaders from different worlds. They had been invited to share their experiences with the council. Velkathis gestured to them. Since New Hope Colony's establishment, I have studied 17 other human colonies across various hostile environments. Volcanic worlds, high radiation planets, low-gravity asteroids. In every case, humans have not only survived but flourished, and in every case, other species have begun adopting human techniques. The council leader, the ancient Threll, leaned forward with interest. You are suggesting that human methods have wider applications? I am not suggesting, honored leader. I am confirming. The Zenthari Cold Weather Outpost on Glacium 5 has implemented human modular habitat designs and seen efficiency improvements of 40%. The Kresh mining colony on Thermos 9 has adopted human redundancy protocols and reduced fatal accidents by 70%. Human influence on galactic colonization is already substantial and growing. Velkathis pulled up her most significant finding, but the most important discovery is not technical. It is philosophical. Humans view hostile environments differently than most species. Where we see threats to be avoided or barely tolerated, humans see puzzles to be solved. Where we seek to minimize our presence and impact, humans seek to thrive and expand. This psychological difference is their greatest advantage. She displayed footage from inside New Hope Colony. Children playing in the recreation center, adults gardening in the greenhouse, scientists conducting research on ice formation, engineers designing new expansion modules. All of it happening on a world that should have killed them within hours. They have built a civilization on Glacium 7, not a temporary outpost or research station, but a true, permanent civilization. They celebrate local holidays. They have established schools. They plan for generations, not just years. They have looked at this frozen death world and decided it is home. The council chamber filled with murmuring, species from across the galaxy processing what this meant. If humans could make Glacium 7 into a home, what other worlds could they colonize? What limits existed to their expansion? The Threll leader called for silence. Dr. Velkathis, you have presented compelling evidence. But I must ask, what was the fundamental error in your original assessment? What obvious factor did you overlook? Velkathis felt her scales flush with the Zenthari equivalent of embarrassment. I assumed that because human bodies are fragile, humans themselves are fragile. I overlooked the fact that humans are not just their bodies. They are their minds, their tools, their communities, their determination. I measured their physical form but ignored their capability to change their circumstances. She paused, then continued. The obvious truth is this: humans do not adapt to worlds. They adapt worlds to themselves. And they do it so quickly and so effectively that by the time other species realize what is happening, the humans have already succeeded. Dr. Chen was invited to speak. She approached the center of the chamber with the same calm confidence she had shown 6 months earlier, when Velkathis had predicted failure. Honored Council, Chen began. My people thank Dr. Velkathis for her honesty and her excellent research. She has identified something that even we do not always recognize about ourselves. We are a young species, relatively new to the galactic community, but we are not new to hostile environments. She displayed images of Earth, Ice Age landscapes where early humans had survived with nothing but fire and fur, desert regions where ancient civilizations had thrived through irrigation and architecture, mountain settlements at altitudes that should have been impossible for human physiology. Earth taught us that the universe does not care about our survival, Chen said. We had to care about it ourselves. We had to be creative, adaptable, and persistent. Every generation of humans has faced some form of crisis, and every generation has found a way through it. Not through biology, but through innovation. She looked directly at Velkathis. When Dr. Velkathis presented her original research, my colleagues asked me if I was concerned. I told them no. Not because I doubted her science, but because I knew she was asking the wrong question. She asked if human bodies could survive Glacium-7. But the right question was whether human ingenuity could solve the challenges of Glacium-7. And to that question, the answer was always yes. The human colony leaders from other worlds stood and shared their own experiences. The volcanic world where humans had built underground cities cooled by sophisticated ventilation systems. The high-radiation planet where humans had developed new shielding materials that other species were now requesting. The water world where humans had created floating cities that moved with the currents. Each story reinforced the same message. Humans did not accept environmental limitations. They saw them as engineering problems waiting for solutions. As the session continued, something remarkable happened. Species after species began asking the humans for help with their own colonization challenges. The proud Grell, who had initially dismissed human capabilities, requested consultation on their failed mining operation in a high-gravity environment. The Zenthari asked for training in human rapid prototyping techniques. Even the ancient Threll expressed interest in human community-building methods for long-term space stations. The galaxy was learning, not just from human technology, but from human attitude. That evening, Velkathis and Chen shared a meal in the Council Station's observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see Glacium-7 in the distance, a small blue-white sphere that had changed everything. "I spent 3 cycles trying to prove you would fail," Velkathis said, sipping the tea that she had grown fond of during her time at the colony. "I am glad I was wrong," Chen smiled. "You were not entirely wrong. Your data was accurate. Humans are physically fragile. We do have narrow tolerance ranges. An unprotected human would die quickly on Glacium-7. You were only wrong about one thing." "What was that?" "You thought we would go there unprotected. You thought we would rely on our biology alone. But humans stopped doing that hundreds of thousands of years ago. When the first human picked up a stick to use as a tool, when the first human controlled fire, when the first human built a shelter, we stopped being purely biological creatures. We became something else, something that changes the world instead of being changed by it." Velkathis considered this. "You have become a technological species. Not just users of technology, but beings for whom technology is as natural as breathing." "Exactly. And that makes us different. Not better, just different. We have weaknesses. We are emotional, sometimes irrational. We make mistakes constantly, but we also never stop trying. We fail, we learn, we adapt, and we try again. That persistence is our real strength." Below them, New Hope Colony prepared for its first winter solstice celebration. In a few days, Glacium-7 would enter its 6-month night, when temperatures would drop even further, and the storms would rage constantly. The time that Velkathis had originally believed would prove fatal to the colony. But the humans were not afraid. They were planning a festival. They had lights and decorations. They had special foods being prepared. They were turning the darkest, coldest period into a celebration. "They are insane," Velkathis said. But her voice was full of affection now, not judgment. "Maybe," Chen agreed. "But we are also alive. And we are going to stay that way." 6 months later, when New Hope Colony emerged from the long night with 0 casualties and 3 more births, the Galactic Council officially designated humans as a Tier 1 colonization species. Their methods were incorporated into standard colonization protocols across the galaxy. Dr. Velkathis published her final paper on the subject, titled simply, "The Obvious Truth, Human Survival Through Innovation." It became required reading at every xenobiology institute in known space. The conclusion read, "Humans survive not despite their biological limitations, but through their ability to transcend those limitations. They are fragile individually, but nearly indestructible collectively. They are poorly adapted to most environments, but excellently adapted to adaptation itself." The obvious truth that this researcher initially missed is simple. When evaluating human capability, one must never ask if their bodies can survive. One must ask if their minds can find a solution. And the answer to that question, as Glacium-7 has proven, is almost always yes. On Glacium-7, life continued. Children born on the ice world grew up knowing no other home. The colony expanded, adding new structures and new capabilities. Humans looked at the frozen horizon and saw not a barrier but a frontier, and across the galaxy other species learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a species that refuses to accept the word impossible. Because humans, with their fragile bodies and remarkable minds, had proven something fundamental about survival. It was not about being the strongest or the most adapted. It was about being the most determined to find a way forward, no matter what the universe threw at you. The ice storms raged on Glacium 7 as they always would. But inside the warm habitats, humanity thrived as they always would. And that, Velcathus finally understood, was the most human thing of all.